Welcome back to Dr. SuperCoach. In this episode, we're going through my round one recap, how my team performed, coming up. Hey, what's up? It's Cheezo from Dr. SuperCoach. If this is your first appointment here, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming updates. I know JB's got some good content coming this week. Let's jump into my round one performance. My round one team, score of 19-18. Not exactly what I'd hoped for. A little bit of drama, as a lot of people did have. I probably got my structure a little bit wrong, and after round one, I'm ranked at nearly 64,000. Not exactly what I had expected, but let's jump into the team that I have. And the first thing you'll notice is I have a 1 and 5 structure down back, which is a risk that I acknowledged going into the preseason and coming into round one, that it was very, very risky. And that also combined with the selection of Lockie Ash, because I just thought by come round 6, we're going to have his DPP running off the half-back line. He's going to help me cover those holes. I honestly did not expect to be facing these sort of conundrums so early in the season. I thought Ash played pretty well, but he was clearly the wrong mid-price player to be going with. So we'll go through. We've got Doherty, Jones, Stocker, Ginbey, McKenna, and Constable, with Wilmot and Cowan on the bench. Cowan subbed at 3/4 time to a bit of cramping. I'm not overly concerned about that. I was actually pretty happy with how he played. There were a couple contests where he sort of didn't go in as hard as I probably thought he would have. First game player, that is to be expected though, so otherwise pretty happy. Jones copping that neck injury and that paresthesia down his right arm, that looked really, really scary. We have seen in the last 24 hours that he's been given the all clear structurally. He's going to train on Wednesday and see if he can get up for the weekend, which is going to be good. He's going to have a break even in the 70s for the next couple of games though, so him making cash and making quick cash is probably not something that I foresee happening now, so there's going to be some questions posed there. Otherwise, across the back line, I'm reasonably happy. Stocker played really well. Ginbey played amazing. McKenna getting those kickouts is going to help with his floor, so I was really happy with McKenna. Constable, 28 touches for 56 is not exactly what we want to see. Pretty poor disposal on the weekend, but against the Swans, they were just hunting them. Really good performance by the Swans. I think they... what was their score? Yeah, they absolutely pumped. I was going to say it was a 10-goal win, but it was close. Yeah, I'm reasonably happy with how Constable played. I do think that he needs to perform a little bit better to hold down his spot, particularly when Weller and Powell are available. So I'm hoping that this week he's going to be a little bit more consistent with foot, have a better disposal efficiency. So there's that to contemplate. But overall, I'm pretty happy. If Jones hadn't have been injured, I was still kind of expecting a 50. And looking at his price, you want him to be making money, you want him to be performing well, but you understand at that sort of price point that we're really only expecting 70 out of him. He wasn't going to be getting that. I think he was like -3 at quarter time, which was really frustrating, but he was playing a really close lockdown role, and they didn't have the freedom that they had in the preseason game against North. They were getting absolutely blasted by Melbourne, not particularly on the scoreboard early on, but they were really on the back foot for the majority of that game, and it's just not the type of game that Jones is going to be able to be taking intercept marks and putting a big score on the board. So I'm interested to see how he goes against the Saints this week, which don't really have a forward line, not particularly a tall forward line if he does get up. So if he does get up, I'm going to be holding, because I still think he can put up some good scores. Gives me another week of data as well, as the prices don't change. We move into the midfield. Obviously, the one thing that stands out is Rory Laird, 50 as a captaincy score. I didn't think paying $700,000 for a player, I would be picking someone that had this floor. I think I saw Frico tweeted that it was the first game since 2014 that he's gone 50 or lower, which is phenomenal for someone of Rory Laird's calibre. He had an awesome preseason game. We correctly predicted that Oliver wasn't going to be a full-time CBA mid. He was spending a little bit of time out of there as Sparrow, and Pickett got a few more CBAs. And that brought his score down a little bit, but there's literally no excuse for Laird. Even when they were flogging GWS towards that first half, basically, he just wasn't getting his hands on the ball. He was in there for the CBAs. He was going head-to-head with Kelly, and they just couldn't get the ball. So that was an interesting one. I'm not worried about his role. He spent a lot of time on the bench. He got splinters, but I think that he can bounce back, and that's just more of an annoyance than anything else after turning down Bontempelli's 107, which is still the correct decision. 120 is about my captaincy score. Bont had a very, very good first half, about 70, 75 or something at half time, only to see the Bulldogs get flogged by the D's, basically. Holding him to 107. Kelly, 80, worked into the game really well. He had a good opening quarter in terms of disposals. But man, GWS were literally having a competition between their players of who could have the worst turnover in the first half. It was abysmal, their disposal efficiency. I literally could not believe it. He worked into the game in the second quarter, and particularly the third quarter was looking really, really good as GWS fought back and they started taking control out of the middle. As I said, he was going head-to-head with Laird for a particular time there, and he was just cutting him up. Unfortunately, the tackle between Sloan and Rob did get the head knock, and he failed the concussion test, so he will be missing round 2. I don't think he misses round 3 because I think they've got at least 12 days between them because they'll play on the Saturday, I'm pretty sure. Let's just check. No, they're playing on Sunday, so he's got heaps of time. So as long as he doesn't have any lasting concussion symptoms, he will be back for round... Oh, no, let's check. Oh, yeah, it is a Saturday. So I think that's the 13th day. So he should still be right to go as long as he doesn't have any concussion symptoms. So fingers crossed. I think at this point, I'm almost leading towards trading him. And you're probably thinking, Cheezo, like you're 100% of the time you hold 1 week injuries. The problem is with such a slow start and so many trades, and I almost deserve it starting Josh Kelly. You know, like we always say that these injury-prone players, like if you pick them and they get injured, it's no one else's fault but your own. And I'm not happy with my structure. So this 1 week injury gives me a chance to rejig my structure. It allows me to potentially get Jones up to Dacos or Ridley, who I thought both looked really good on the weekend. Kelly can become someone like Warple, who I had pretty much all the last week of the preseason until I flipped him to Ash once Crozier was out. Once Crozier was out and I saw the back line, I was like, I'd love to have an extra defensive swing in Ash to go back in round 6. Let's see if I can get through 5 weeks. Turns out I couldn't, and it turns out that was the bad decision. Ash literally must be the most hated player in their club because every time the ball goes near him, they switch it to the opposite side, they handball over his head. It is phenomenal how many times they burnt him on the weekend. And to be on like 14 or 15 at half time was just ludicrous. So he has had a decent back half of the game, but I just don't think he has the upside I thought he did. So he can potentially go to Warple. Kelly and Jones are going to be interesting. We'll go through some trade ideas. Green was huge. He was also like, he probably lost 40 points just from not being able to hit a target there a few times early on in the game. So he was huge. He was huge. I'm really happy with that. Hopper, he had a slow game. He got the right role. He had the CBAs, exactly what we expected. He just wasn't getting his hands on the pill. When he was doing it, he was just missing targets. So I'm happy with Hopper. Not necessarily happy with his score, but if his floor from a bad game is in the 60s, I'm happy with that. I still see him as going around the 90-95 mark, so not too bad. Ashcroft worked into the game really, really slowly. So Ashcroft, he got not as quite as many CBAs as I thought he would do. He was definitely kind of like the 4th and 5th rotation mid, but he did get enough the ball. He started slow, worked into it, and had a really good back half. I think he had like a 40-point second half, so I'm still confident at Ashy, owned by such a large portion of the teams of the competition, so I'm certainly happy having Ashcroft there. And Mackenzie was huge, particularly in the first 2 or 3 quarters against the Bombers. He was everywhere. He was taking contested marks he was basically leading up from the wing as they were trying to exit 50, getting hit by Sicily a number of times. It looked really, really good. I'm super happy with how he performed, and I'm glad that I had him on field because I know a lot of people were kind of switching between bench and M8 for Mackenzie, so he's looking like a really, really good fielding option at this point. Ollie Hollands, Baker and Chessart, they all basically did, rookie bench numbers. Baker had some good time on the ground, but just didn't make use of the ball, especially, as a link-up player on the wing when they're getting absolutely flogged. He's just not going to get a stack of the ball. And I don't think he was in the bottom 3 or 4 players for the Dogs either, so I think he's pretty good in terms of keeping his job. His job security. Ollens I thought was great. He is a little bit of a skinny kid, and he was getting outrun by McIntosh there a few times, but he kept putting in the hard yards. 56 is kind of what we expect. Particularly for a rookie, so I'm definitely happy with him. He's certainly not a fieldable option for me, but as an emergency and to generate some cash in the background is going to be okay. I'd like to see a little bit more, 60s, mid-60s, something like that to make sure he does get the cash, but he's going to be fine. And I thought Chester was good early in the game in terms of his gut running and getting to contests and stuff like that, but the Eagles were just getting smashed. The scoreline flattered them a little bit. I thought that North were all over them for the entirety of the game, and so when he gets a few more minutes under his belt, a few more games into the season, I'm sure that 20 turns into a 50 as he starts to link up a little bit better, so not too disappointed. Darcy and Marshall were the disappointment that I didn't expect that I was going to have. Going head-to-head at half-time, I think Marshall was on 40, and I remember checking in halfway through the second quarter, and Darcy was literally the second lowest scoring player on the Freo team. And I sent a message to Pistol and JB, I'm like, is Darcy injured? Please don't tell me he's injured. And he goes, nah, he's just sucking today. He's just really bad. So to see him have like a 70-point second half is pretty crazy. I think he got to 50 at halftime or something like that. So disappointing in terms of what I thought the upside would be, considering that English was my the one that I wanted to start, but my ideal structure that I had here, particularly because Stocker was Crozier up until lockout and he didn't get named, I didn't have the cash to get English. That was my issue, and English would have been in there if Hollands could have stayed at Phillips. Obviously, Phillips was the sub. He came on and scored 60s, which is absolutely frustrating because he did really good for his job security. I thought he was fine. I thought he was really, really good, to score 60 in like 2.5 quarters. So, yeah, that's going to be a tricky one, particularly if he gets named in the 22 this week, which I'll be interesting to see. Goldie probably comes in for Sherry, but I still think Phillips was really good. These guys I still got confidence in. I still think Darcy and Marshall are going to be a good combo. I want to see more from Darcy. This week going up against North, he's probably rucking against Goldie and Comben, I guess. So I really think that that he's still going to be a good selection, but if he tanks it this week and English is on 100 at half-time again, I'm probably going to have to make the switch round 3 because I cannot ignore English's start to last year, and if Darcy's not performing, I've got to pull the trigger. Too many trades to be sitting on my hands. Forward line is the one point that I'm actually happy with. Dunkley, 75 at half-time. Cornelio was absolutely monstrous. Rosie, I thought, was great without being exceptional. I thought Butters and Jason Horn-Francis were outdoing him in the middle. There were a lot of times where Rosie got the ball, burst out of traffic, did a spin, did that, handball this way, got the ball back, and then just bombed it on top of someone's head, and then it came back the other way. So I've still got confidence in Rosie. 97 in a average week, I think is great. So if his floor can be reasonably high because of that, he had a great role. CBA's fantastic. Taranto, again, was great. Taranto doing Taranto things, getting 70 touches at a disposal efficiency of 30%. What we expect. Goulden was great. Absolutely awesome. Not a leading CBA winner, but I still think he is fourth in that rotation. He had more than Mills, who only had 14, potentially because he missed that pre-season game that they just kind of working him into it. So I don't think Goulden holds the same amount of CBAs as what he does during the regular season, but 115 is great. Flanders started really, really slow. Again, he was 23 or something at half-time. So he's shown that he can score, but the Suns were just getting absolutely belted by the Swans. So I need another week of data against the Bombers, who should give him more freedom off that half forward line. He'll get a couple CBAs. I think he had 4 on the weekend. So there is that as well. So I didn't like Bruin. Obviously, I didn't like Fife. Cheezo is probably the consideration that I have. I didn't think Cheezo would get the halfback Nick Dacos role, which is huge. Yeah, it's interesting one for me. I all preseason he spent 1 quarter back there in the preseason, They've got like Aaron Hall to come back. They've got all these players that are going to be playing across the half back line, and he dominated, absolutely dominated. So it's going to be really hard to see them getting him out of that half back line. And Clarko has said they're going to put him where he's going to get a touch. And he's a freak. He's got Nick Dacos 2023 written all over him. So I think I need to consider finding a way to get him in at some point. And particularly if Flanders doesn't perform in the second round, it's going to be an easy switch to Cheezo, particularly if he has another good game and looks like generating some cash. Green and Davey I thought were fine as rookie options. Green started really, really well. When the Hawks were up and about in the first quarter, kicked goal, got pumped, everything looked good. Whereas Davey kind of started slow and worked his way into it. Had a few nervous moments when he's trying to have a shot for goal, but when he bombed that one from outside 50, I thought was fantastic. So Davey, I think, has locked up his spot, and I'm happy that I called him earlier in the preseason that I thought he was going to get games because we just don't have enough pressure in the forward 50. So he's locked in there. Green, I think, is fine. I think they just got belted. It's likely that against the Swans this week he puts up another poor score, but I'm not rushing to try and get rid of him at this stage. So here are some proposed trades that I've been thinking about. $700 left in the kitty. Jones, Kelly and Ash to Dacos, Horne-Francis and Worpel. I had Worpel all preseason, not all preseason, but basically that last week until I got talked into Ash needing that DPP to cover the back line. I think structurally, I can say now that I was disappointed that I went only one premium in defense. I think we need to have two, and then the question becomes why Dacos. I think Dacos is going to get tagged. I think he's going to only average about 100 for the year, but if I'm paying 90 averages and I can now see what his non-tagged scores are, I want to be on board for the non-tagged scores. Horne-Francis I think was fantastic, particularly towards the middle of the game. He was just bursting out of the center and he had socks up. I'm a big socks up player, and I honestly believe that needs to have an extra 10 Supercoach points for playing socks up. No one else will agree on me on that. And Worpel, the disappointing one, I had him so close to the start of the game. It was only when I took out Crozier and thinking to myself, I'd love to have some DPP in the middle, coming into round 6. Maybe I'll start Ash. He'll get that DPP and I can throw him back. So that was disappointing. Structurally, I think I needed to go 2 in defense, and I went a little overexposed with the 5. Jones may play this week. Kelly won't play this week. And Ash, I think, was just the wrong choice. Question of the day. What do you think of my round 1 team, and do you think I can fight back from the mid 60k ranks? What do you think of my trades, and do you think it's going to help fix my issues? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, you can find us on Twitter and Facebook at Dr. Supercoach. You can also help support us by jumping onto the merch store at drsupercoach.com.au or checking us out on patreon.com/Dr. Supercoach. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy this, you might find some more useful content on our YouTube channel. Until then, we'll catch you at your next Dr. Supercoach appointment.